In this episode, you'll learn how to use dynamic data in your Next.js site. So, by adding data from external sources, rendering it within Next.js, but still have it working with server-side rendering for optimum performance and SEO. You're watching DevTips and I'm David. Okay, so what are we doing? So let's just check out the site. Say that we have all these agencies here. Right now they are hard-coded in this here, just hard-coded there. I want to have them fetched from some kind of database, basically. So we have to figure out how can we fetch the data and put it here without affecting the server-side rendering and just get it working. Actually, in the react.js prototyping series, me and MPJ did one episode on how to do this in React. So I'm going to show you how you would do it with standard React. And then that is the componentDidMount thing. And then I'll show you how we'll do it here in Next.js with getInitialProps. And a small discussion on what's good and bad with either option. Let's get to it. So let's just set some dynamic data here in the agencies.js. We'll just fetch data, and then we can use this package that is called what is it called? Something isomorphic fetch, I think. Let's see that. npm install -- save iso fetch. Is that what it's called? Seems like it. So what's the isomorphic fetch? It's basically that we have, because Next.js, we don't know if it's running on the client or on the server. So fetch, we have that in the client, but we don't have it on the server. So by adding here, we'll just ensure that we'll have a fetch command that works either if it's on server or in the browser. Let's just convert this to something that we were used to seeing. So this is very Next.js-ish. So if we were to just make this more of an ordinary thing, we wrap this in braces, and this is the render function. Whoops, render. The render part, which is basically just returning a div. Does this work? No. Let's just specify class extends react.component. Do like this, because then we're not like just outputting something, we're specifying the class and then we have the render within it. Will this work? Yeah, that works. Do you remember how we did it? We had, when we used the ordinary way, we used set state. So basically, we made a constructor. Within that constructor, we had to call super for React reasons. You can check out the episode we did to like follow along if you don't remember what we did. But basically, in the constructor, we set an initial state to have the app, before it has loaded things with the fetch, it doesn't have anything, and to not fail, we just had to add something. So this.state equals something, an object, and in the object we have an array of agencies, and initially it's empty. So here in this list, we'll just say, we'll do some magic here. So if this dot state dot agencies, if that exists. We run this, but otherwise this have nothing. That won't work. If we have that, we'll run this. Otherwise, run that. Like that. Yeah, so we have something here and this runs. But if we check if this state agencies exists and length has to be more than 0, then we should run it. Otherwise, we shouldn't render it. So now it's not there. Okay. So most trusted agencies, we have nothing here. We can just add something here, like some HR, just to know where we are. Like that. Okay. So if we have the agencies, we should render them. So we can render, if we have them, we should do a list, and for state agencies.map, and for each agency, we'll return something. We'll return the list item, and we will have an h3 with the agency.name. Okay. That's all for now. So we can remove all this data that we're not using. So now it's, if we have a state with agencies and that length is larger than 0, so it has something, then we should render something. Otherwise, we should just say have nothing. We can just make that strong. Nothing. Have nothing. But if we add an agency, name DevTips Ultra Best Design Agency, then we should have one item here. Yes. So we just say that we have 0. And if you remember the episode in the React prototyping, we had to update the state on componentDidMount. So when we're in componentDidMount, we can activate state and do all that stuff. So there we can set the state and update it. So we have to fetch. So let response, we can do that const response equals fetch, and then we should fetch some data from here. This is just fake data. I don't know, what are the fields called here? Wait. User ID, body, title. Okay, so let's just exchange that for title for now. Agency.title. So we fetch these, but we have to await them because it's occurring asynchronously. And then once we have the response, we can do the agencies, which is await response.json. And then when we have the JSON, we can here return the agencies like that, right? We're not returning anything. We'll set this .set state. We're setting the state, we're updating the state with agencies, and they have the list of agencies, right? Oh, and because we're using await, we have to do this asynchronously. Yes, so that is the async. That is the async await thing, and function has many episodes on it. So now we should get a long list. This had 100 items, and display each title if this is working. Woohoo! It's working. But if we reload, you see that there's a very quickly it's empty. Have nothing. Have nothing. So this is because this is done in the client. This is not done on the server. So if you remember the React prototyping episode, we made a small like a loading, just had a text that said loading. So instead of saying have nothing, we said loading. Because this is done in the client only. So if we were to just curl our localhost here. So this is the way when a Google bot is coming to the site and looking at it. And it is looking for the list of agencies. It doesn't have the list. It hasn't rendered anything because it's empty. It says here, have nothing. So the server fetches it and nothing is rendered. And that's why we have to use server-side rendering. And that's why we're using Next.js, because Next.js is making server-side rendering using React very easy. Let's just check this in. Fetching data with componentDidMount. Not server-side rendered. No. Commit, yes. Okay, so how to do this instead? Next.js has a really neat feature. So when you have this component, you can use props. And props are the things that we're sending to components often. So if we're looking at the index, props is when we're passing something here, like agencies, some properties. So let's say I want to render 3 agencies. How many? These attributes are props. And Next.js is using a special method called getInitialProps. But not for doing this way in using subcomponents. It's only working for pages. If you want to have this server-side rendering. The other thing, as you see, this is working. It's just that we want to have it server-side rendered. So, fetching data and component lifecycle, this is what we're going to use. So we have the same thing here, export default class extends React component, but it has the getInitialProps. But the thing here is that we have done it in a component and we can't do it in a component. So we're going to move everything from this component up to the page. So we're just going to drop that, not use that, and instead just put all the component things here. And sometimes you want to like keep some data in a specific file because that makes sense and have like a great structure. But because this basically is sort of like a single page app and the main page will have the list of agencies, this is okay. We can just render the agencies and have them tied to the index.js. I think that is fine. And if things will work, that's really good. So let's just put that date. Let's just put this here. Take this div. And we paste that here instead. Div agencies. But we're not going to use the state here. We're going to use the props. So it will say state. We should use props instead. Props. But this won't work. If I run it now, it won't work. Well, it will probably work. We don't need that. Don't need to import the agencies. Let's just see what happens when we run it. It runs. Nothing will happen because we have this check. So this says if there are props that has the agencies props, then do that. But we don't have it, so it will say have nothing. Right? No, it says agencies undefined. Okay, it doesn't work. Can't read property agencies of undefined. So here we use the shorthand. Again, we're going to convert this to like regular React. So I'm going to do that right now. So let's remove that. Export default class index extends react.component. And then this will be the render part. So render. And then return that. Let's just comment this out to see what happens now. Compile successfully. Everything is working here. Okay, so now we have the same thing as previously. We could add the async componentDidMount here. And things would work. But we want to use something that Next.js does that uses the props, and that will allow for the server-side rendering. So they have something called static async. You have to make it a static asynchronous getInitialProps. Like that. And then it works sort of the same. We take this. We don't have to do the constructor because this, using the getInitialProps, will wait for this to happen before it actually renders something. So if this is a really slow call, that's perhaps a bad idea, but we need it. So we'll just do it like that. So what happens now? Everything should work right now. Should resolve to an object, but found undefined. So now it's returning undefined, but it should return an object, which will be the prop. So we can just return agencies and put the agencies there. Let's uncomment this. So remember, we're using this props and agencies instead of this state. So let's save that. Yeah, warning. Each child in an array or iterator should have a unique key property. So that is when we're rendering. So we're going through all these agencies and rendering them with the list item, with the list items. But to better keep track of them, with every update, we should add a key property. And here in the key, we can just add the ID. Did we have an ID within these? yeah, we have an ID. So we can just add that. So you saw there in the background, it's actually working, but it's just a warning. So now if we save this, compile successfully, everything is fine, and we reload here, you can see that even if we reload, it's rendering everything. So it's working. And if we curl it, how does that look? So before we curl it and we got nothing, and now we curl it, and you see we get everything. Everything here is curled. We have all the list items here. Magic. So it's actually working. So let's just clean this up, this mess. Agencies, remove it. We don't need that anymore. Delete it. Yes, yes, delete. Do we need to do something else here? Not really. Perhaps we can just class agencies. Just put the agencies here instead. This point. Agencies. Just to make this look nicer, like that. Save. We get everything here. Boom, boom. Everything is working. So that's it. In this episode, we showed why you shouldn't use set state if you want to have it server-side rendered. Set state is great in React, and it's good because if we were using set state, then we would have continuous real-time uploads. We don't have that right now. Now it's just rendering it, and then everything is fine, which is what we want. This is not a chat. We don't need to update this constantly. So we did that using getInitialProps instead, which is really, really neat in Next.js to have things server-side rendered, which is why we're using Next.js from the start. So that was it. Thank you for watching. This was DevTips. I'm David, and in the next episode we will add some kind of database. A real database, probably Google Firebase under Cloud Firestore. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, thumbs up, and share the video and all that stuff. Bye.